There's only a couple things we can do. We can either extend the agreement till such a time as the title report comes back and clears up any title issues that there could be. Of course, with the county, when we enter into these contracts, we do file a memorandum of interest on the purchase of the property because we do have a vested interest in the purchase of the property, which basically clouds title, prevent title transfer in the future without going through us. Ultimately, you wouldn't be able to sell the property in any capacity until that situation is cleared up.
So even if I was to cancel the contract with you guys, it wouldn't be able to sell until after my contract exceeded with you all?
When we enter into an agreement and a person who we entered into an agreement with decides they no longer want to honor that agreement, like our interests are protected with the county. I mean, it's a governmental document. It's a memorandum of purchase agreement. What's up, guys? It is Chris Closes Your Deal with Real Estate Investing Made Easy and Lazarus Property Group. And in this call, we're actually going to be jumping on with a seller that we are under contract with in Oklahoma. All of a sudden, she's trying to back out of the sale of the property. And so I'm going to be reaching out to try to see what's going on, figure out the situation, and ultimately keep this thing moving forward. So we'll see what happens.
Hello.
Hi, can I speak to Mike?
Speaking.
This is Chris with REI Made Easy. How are you today?
Hi. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little upset.
What's going on?
So as I have tried to explain to Brad, I'm needing to get out of the contract. There is a lot of issues going on with my title, as I've been trying to talk to him about, and then a family member stepped forward and is pushing on the issue and telling me that I'm not allowed to sell the property. It is a huge headache, and it's getting to push towards legal standpoints of what they're wanting to push towards. Not only that, but along with all the family drama, I'm just kind of over it at this point and would like to try to take care of my own issues before pushing forward with something else. I don't appreciate the way that he kept pushing on me as I was trying to explain this to him last night and trying to push forward with making me feel like I had to sell my property no matter what. My biggest concern, like I was trying to tell him, is that I want to make sure I have all of my hens in the right basket before pushing forward and then ending up with a lawsuit.
What's the situation with the family member? Like, help me understand what's going on there and them telling you can't sell your house.
So as I had tried explaining to Brad, that the title to the mobile home itself is not in my name.
But it's signed over to you.
It is, the deed to the property is, yes. And the title, it's more going against family wishes and moral state that they're pushing, and they're going to try to drag any standpoint of what they can, even if it goes to civil. They have already stated they don't care. They're pushing to go to court if I sell this place.
But based on the title and the certificate of title that you'd sent us and the deed for the land, they have no legal interest in the property. Am I wrong about that?
That's where I'm kind of wondering on my grandpa's extinguishing what had happened there. This place was supposed to be split between family members after my grandpa passed. Once I bought the property, that money that was used to buy the property was supposed to go towards them. And I'm not understanding if they never received their property, if they weren't told what had happened. I'm not sure. That's why I just keep saying I want to just get rid of this contract that I've entered with you guys until I figure out what's going on over here, because the property may not even be in my name. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what all needs to happen and what I need to do before I can even sell anything.
I'm just trying to follow the whole situation here. So who did you buy the property from? Your grandparents?
Yes.
Okay.
So the title itself, that's not my grandparents.
Okay. So who is that?
That is where this whole issue is coming apart. And that's what I've been trying to figure out. They're saying that a family member over here is trying to take hold of it, and then I don't know. I'm trying to hold my end up with what I have, and I can honestly tell you that my brain feels like it's about to split right now.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I bought the property from my grandparents. is where I'm trying to figure out where paperwork has been crossed or something wasn't signed or something was signed and they're just bringing something up. I don't know. I just want to get that figured out before I push forward with anything else. And I feel like the best option for me to do is to get out of this contract with you guys until I figure out what's happening over here and if I even can sell this.
So I totally get that, and that's what we're here for. Like my job, just so you're aware, like I'm with the client success team, and so my role is to resolve these types of issues and just make sure that everything is being done above board. So ultimately, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what we can do, I mean, obviously it sounds like you have a desire to sell the property. Am I wrong about that?
As of right now, I'm going to say no. Not until I get figured out and not wanting to double cross one of my family members or dig a like a strife between us or anything like that. I want to get this part figured out first and making sure I'm not crossing anybody.
But your intention is to sell the property.
As of right now, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, you said no, but I want to clear up some things. So the after the but is you do want to sell it. Am I wrong about that?
Not until I figure out what's happening. So the answer would be a firm no as of right now.
The situation is this, right? Like we entered into an agreement to purchase the property, right? Like that contract we entered into with you. Part of the process, what happens when you enter into a contract for the purchase of a property is there's time, energy, effort, finances, funding, marketing, cost, and everything that goes into that whole process. And part of that process is running a legal title report and check and everything. And so what's happening right now, title is already open. And what they're doing is they're going through the process of tracking down all the documentation for the title transfer of the property. So they're going to clear up any potential title issues. People can say whatever they want, right? At the end of the day, like this happens pretty frequently. This is not the first time we've had this conversation. It's not going to be the last time we have this conversation. But typically what happens is somebody's like, oh yeah, well, you can't sell it for XYZ reason. Now, in some situations, they have a legal standing to state that, right? And title will reveal that. They'll go through, they'll pull the documentation, all the court recordings, all the documentation with the county, and they'll get that all cleared up and squared away, right? And they'll determine, okay, the person does have a legal interest in the property. And so, it either can't sell for whatever reason, or when it sells, a portion of the proceeds go to that person. Most of the time, I would say probably 85 to 90% of the time, there's absolutely no legal reason for that person to object, and they have no real right to the property.
I understand completely from a legal standpoint of where you guys are coming from on if I wanted to push forward with the sale, I completely could. But from a moral standpoint and for my values and family values and the respect that I share for my family, I cannot.
Got it. Okay. What is it that's changed? Because I understand that you had this property listed prior to us being involved. Like, so you were actively trying to sell it then, and then you stopped trying to sell it and then entered into contract with us to sell it to us.
So a lot of it had to do with me pushing forward and how I felt. And after some time has come forward, family members have stepped forward, like I said, and a few viewpoints have been changed.
Got it. Okay. Based on that situation, right? Understanding that we've put time, energy, effort, and finances towards the purchase of the property, entering into a legally binding agreement that, we fully intend to execute on. What do you think should happen there with regards to what we've output towards the purchase of the property?
I don't mean to sound rude nor forthcoming in any negative way, but I know from personal experience that the money you guys keep saying you have put forward, which I am not doubting that you haven't, you make it sound as if it's worth thousands and thousands of dollars that you've put forth on this, and I know from firsthand that it is not. And I can tell you from a sales perspective and being in the position that you guys are in right now, I'm sorry to say it, and it is going to come off as an asshole-ish way, and I apologize, but it talks up to costs that kind of just end up benefiting or forfeiting. I've personally had to do it. I've lost quite a bit of money on doing several different things, and it's just things that happen. It's like as if, say for instance, whenever I was running my horse business and I was breaking horses and stuff, I'd have a client bring a horse out here. I would go in and drop in all of the money that I needed for it on buying hay, feed, all of that it needed for the full month. Within 3 days, they'd come back and yank it back. I'm out all that money.
So I'm failing to see the comparison here.
I know that you guys have annual fees that you pay for a lot of your stuff, which in turn is maybe $113 a year. Just an estimated gauge from that. So with that in mind, and then knowing with how many properties you guys would pull from each, and with how much money I'm guessing you guys put forward for each property, I would guess maybe a very small fraction of that, if you were looking at it with percentage coinage, would have been put towards putting up all of the things that you need for mine. With that, also keep in mind that your realtor made it very clear he was just buddies with you guys.
What do you mean buddy? What does that mean?
Like, it was more of a favor for her coming in and taking your guys' pictures and listing it and things like that.
Oh, it's certainly not a favor. She's our listing agent. She's going to be listing it and getting paid based on selling the property. So when we buy houses, we put money into cleaning them up, renovating them, to whatever degree makes sense for the particular property. We pay for marketing, we pay for photographs, we pay to put it on different websites, we pay for all types of different things throughout the process. And so when...
Yes, and I'm not doubting that. And as I was stating, all of your listings for your MLS and your everywhere that you would list it for your realtor doesn't pay till after the place gets sold, so you have no money put forward on her. As for the other things, those are all an annual fee that you pay every month, every year. My apologies.
Just out of curiosity, how many real estate investing businesses have you run?
Real estate and business. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I haven't ran any.
Okay.
But I know people from firsthand.
Got it. So I'm just trying to understand where you're coming up with these estimates of numbers. Like, I don't know anything about, like, I don't train horses, so I wouldn't purport to know like costs involved in training, boarding, and all of that stuff, right? I understand, you might feel uneasy about the sale at this point, but there's obviously a time when you entered into the contract where you were actively trying to sell the property after you had actively tried to sell the property and it didn't sell. And so we entered into an agreement.
Part of the reason why I'd like to get out of this contract is because of how I've been treated by your company.
How have you been treated?
I have been completely rude. I will be outright honest with you. Every single person I have spoken to within your company or represents your company is rude. Your real estate lady that came out here and took pictures of my place, I had my window open, and the entire time she was walking around my property, she was not speaking very politely. The entire time that I spoke with her, she had a very uppity attitude towards me, was not very welcoming. She made it very clear that she felt as if this was a one-time trip for her, and she didn't even want to make the 5-hour trip to come back, is what she had told me. So whenever I had talked to Brad about this and had tried explaining to him in a very polite way of how she made me feel, all he had done was come up with excuses and then try to backwards talk out of everything that I had been trying to tell him. And you, sir, you started off very polite until I had struck a nerve in telling you that I did not want to be in the contract no more. As far as I am understanding, everything that has been said to me about this contract, at first, it sounded like a wonderful deal, okay? I will admit that. It sounded wonderful. But I was also told that you guys would be purchasing the property. You would not be marketing and putting it up and trying to basically become a realtor and selling the property. I was under the impression that you yourself was purchasing this property and handing over the money for it, not looking for a buyer.
Well, what we do, right, just so you kind of understand the process, is we pre-market.
I'm fully aware of how your process works.
It doesn't sound like it. So, maybe there's a misunderstanding.
What I'm understanding with how your contract and how you people work, you go in and you find somebody and you like to use your words. You're very good at dressing them up. Don't let me fool you on that. You make it sound like a very awesome deal and it's a quick cash little area thing to where I would already have been in the house I wanted. But you don't. And every time that I have spoken to Brad, all he's done is confuse me even more on it. So I had to go to somebody else. And how it was explained to me is you guys come in, buy the property, or say you're going to buy the property. You write up a contract, go off and find somebody to purchase this property. And you write a lump sum of money for the seller. And whatever you guys can get as a profit off of that, even more, you guys list it for higher than what you promised to, purchase it for, is your guys' keep. Well, sir, as you can see, I already had done all of that stuff. So what I'm understanding or not understanding is why the hell am I paying you extra money for doing the stuff that I had already done? You just cut me out of a huge deal because I had it listed for $235. You dropped me down to $162 with the impression that I would have the money in hand within 7 to 10 days.
Nobody ever told you 7 to 10 days. And just so you're aware, we record every single one of our conversations. So when we go back and we listen to the recording of Brad walking you through step by step the contract where he talks about a 60-day close of escrow, he's very clear about a 60-day close of escrow. And additionally, right, the process as you perceive it is not in actuality what's happening. What happens is you put your property on the market in its current condition. You weren't planning on doing anything to renovate it or add value to the property for the end buyer. Am I wrong about that?
Yes, you are. I was in the process of remodeling a lot of things and updating quite a few things until Brad had contacted me. And within that phone call between me and him, it was stated that the purchase of this property was as is. So I did not need to do any more fixing on this.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Our purchase agreement with you is as is. You don't need to do anything else to the property. But when you said you listed it for $235, you weren't going to continue to do more renovations to it while it was listed and just continue to add more money into the property as you were selling it for $235, right? You were going to sell it in its current condition, try to get $235. What we do is we come in and we say, based on the value of the property, the current condition, we will give you a set amount, right? Which you and Brad talked about. He told you it probably needed to be lower, but eventually you guys ended up at the 162 or whatever it was, right? We, in an effort to streamline our process, because interest rates are really high right now, if we close on a property and then we take 2 or 3 months to renovate it, and then we take another month or 2 to list it on the property, that increases costs, which means our offer to you would end up having to be lower. So in an effort to streamline the process, what we do is we get it under contract. We immediately begin marketing, pre-marketing the property. As we get buyers that express interest into it, we discuss with them what needs to be done and things that they might like to see done to it. And then we negotiate based on what those things we can actually put in based on the price that they're paying. If they need $100,000 worth of renovations, we certainly can't sell it for, $30,000 more than what we're under contract with you at, right? So typically what happens is buyers come in and they're like, oh, I'd like this particular type of backsplash in the kitchen, or I'd like this particular paint color, or this type of flooring. And while we're going through escrow, we can start putting those things into place. So that way, when they move in, it's all completed and it streamlines our process, makes it way more efficient, and saves a lot of the holding costs that we would incur otherwise if we closed with traditional fix and flip financing. Because fix and flip financing, as much as regular interest rates are 6.5%, 7.5% right now, fix and flip financing is 10 to 12% interest. So if we have to pay 10 to 12% interest for the funds to close on the property, Like, we don't just eat that cost. That just means that the offer to the seller is lower. So when he brought this to the underwriting team and they approved it for this program, it was based on those facts. So really what I'm hearing from you ultimately is that I'm imagining if you were getting $230,000 for the house, if we were going to give you $230,000 for the house, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation right now, right?
Here's the issue I'm having here. Like I stated before, everything that you guys are doing, everything that I was already in the process of doing, I was under the impression that you guys were going to come in and purchase the property and I was going to receive the money. Not that you guys were going to find a buyer. I'm still living here. All of the renovations that were needing to be done, I was in the process of doing them. I stopped because Brad told me to stop.
Okay. So you prefer to continue putting more money into the property that is not necessary for you to put into it?
No, sir. I'm just ready to get out of contract so I can proceed on with what I need to figure out on my end of the deal. My family is a little bit more important to me than money.
Okay, so how long do you think you need to clear up the situation with the title and the ownership?
I have no idea.
What do you think is a reasonable time for that?
Like I said before, I have no idea. When it comes to my family and dealing with the court, I cannot speak for other people and how fast they move with things. So the honest answer that I can give you on that is, I don't know.
Okay. Well, per the terms of our contract, that we intend to move forward with, there's only a couple things we can do. We can either extend the agreement till such a time as the title report comes back and clears up any title issues that there could be. Of course, with the county, when we enter into these contracts, we do file a memorandum of interest on the purchase of the property because we do have a vested interest in the purchase of the property, which basically clouds title, prevent title transfer in the future without going through us. The property is not going to be able to transfer title at all until that gets cleared up.
Okay.
That gets filed with the county, so they'll have record of that and our interest in the property. Ultimately, you wouldn't be able to sell the property in any capacity until that situation is cleared up.
So even if I was to cancel the contract with you guys, it wouldn't be able to sell until after my contract exceeded with you all?
The sale would have to go through us.
So again, you guys have lied to me and trapped me into something.
No, we haven't lied to you. We entered into a legally binding contract that you entered into willfully.
This is not the full truth. You admitted it, which therefore stands for a lie.
Nobody admitted to anything. Brad read through the contract with you on the phone.
Nowhere in there it states that within this contract, you guys would legally be withholding it over my head. But even in 5 years, if I had decided to sell this property, or even if my family had taken over it and decided to sell it within 5 or 10 years, they wouldn't be able to.
It's not a lie. When we enter into an agreement and a person who we entered into an agreement with decides they no longer want to honor that agreement, like, our interests are protected with the county. I mean, it's a governmental document. It's a memorandum of purchase agreement. So we do that to protect our interests because this is not the first rodeo. This is not the first time we've entered into a contract and somebody, had a change of heart, and at the end of the day, while I can appreciate that, it's strictly business. We enter into an agreement. We fully intend to execute on that agreement, and we're going to use, the agreement that we have in place to fulfill our obligations. We're going to fulfill our obligations per the terms of our agreement. We're not going to back out of our agreement. We're not going to back out of the terms that we've agreed to. And so, the whole point of a contract is to hold both parties accountable. If we did something outside of the bounds of the contract that we entered into with you, we would be held accountable. Now, usually what happens, and I'm not saying that this is the case here, but typically in my experience, because I've been doing this for a long time, typically what happens is when I have these conversations with somebody, it's usually somebody came along and said, oh, you can get more for it, or oh, they're making money off of you, or oh, this, or oh, that. And really, it just simply comes down to a financial thing. And that's why I'm guessing,
To clear this up, even if I go through with this whole family ordeal that I'm facing with, in 5 years or 10 years, my family was to take over this property, or I had decided to change the property or to sell the property, I'd have to contact you guys to sell it.
Well, on the title report, it would come back that there's a company with an interest in the property based on our contract that we've entered into, right? The whole contract gets submitted to the county with the memorandum of purchase agreement. So again, because at the end of the day, what happens very often is somebody will enter into a contract, and then they'll enter into another contract and another contract, right? So picture and imagine a world where you've entered into a contract to purchase somebody's property, and then that seller signed a contract with 2 or 3 other people. How do you think that situation gets resolved?
I have no idea.
With a memorandum of purchase agreement. You file an interest with the county, recording your interest in the property so that there's a paper trail showing that you've entered into a legally binding contract with an interest to purchase that asset. And then basically what happens is the courts go through and review and say, okay, party A, no memorandum agreement. There's no documentation showing that you had an interest in this property. Party B, nope, there's no interest there. Oh, party C, yep, you have a documented, recorded instrument showing that you had a purchase contract that was a legally binding agreement that you'd entered into on good faith. So the property's yours, right? So at the end of the day, it's just simply to protect our interests. We put a lot of time, energy, effort, marketing dollars, everything into finding and acquiring properties, and we've gone down this road before where, other parties have come in and, try to enter into a contract, and, they're trying to strong arm us and trying to do all these things. And, at the end of the day, we're a business. We have to protect our interests. And so one of those interests is the contract to purchase this property. Now, I get what you're saying. I understand you're dealing with some stuff with the family, and I totally understand that. And that's obviously a tough situation. At the end of the day, your protection is all of the same things, right? It's all of the legal documents that show the property changing hands accordingly, and the title and the deed for the land that you have. So all of that stuff is recorded. And so...
Okay, so then, just out of curiosity, whenever he had said that this contract is, let's say that it runs out in 60 days. We hadn't found a buyer or anything like that. He said that we would come back in and reevaluate. What happens then to the lien that you put against my title and to the contract and all of that?
Well, we fully intend to close on the property within the 60 days.
Okay. Hypothetically, I guess is what I should have said in front of that.
Mm-hmm.
Hypothetically, if the place does not sell within the time slot of the contract, what happens to everything?
I'd have to check with the legal department on that one. But again, we've never had that happen, which is why we do a 60-day timeline. Not many properties qualify for this particular program. And so the few that we do, when they get put through the underwriting, it's because we're confident in our ability to close in 60 days, because we do spend a lot of time, money, energy, effort in marketing and pushing these properties out to bring them across the finish line. So, we're not going to do that in the event that we don't think there's a possibility of it closing. We had a property that somebody brought to us, not too long ago, where all of the comps were taking, 6 months to sell. Obviously, we're not going to qualify it for a 60-day process, unless it was wildly lower than every other comp out there,
Okay, so if I was to proceed on with this and ignoring with what all is happening with my family,
Mm-hmm.
I've asked this with Brad before he made it pretty clear that the day of closing, whenever this property is sold, that all of my things need to be off of here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have nowhere else to go, and I have no money to move my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He said there would be a possibility of being able to get some type of money up front or something like that, so I would have money to go and move or something.
I gotcha. Is that what you feel like you're going to need at this point, is a storage unit or something for your belongings to go to?
Basically, that in a way to be able to transport everything. Or if I had found a property, if I wanted to put some type of down payment or something like that on it, saying, hey, don't sell this, let me kind of get my ducks in a row type of ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the positions of what I am looking at right now. Is I'm either looking at losing my home from my family and you guys entering into a legal battle, or you guys selling my property and I still have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And then I've just lost all of my stuff because you guys signed the property over and I didn't get a chance to get anything moved.
Yeah, so we're not going to do that. I mean, like we're not like heartless people that are just taking people's belongings or anything like that. I mean, the reality is like we have a process for that. And again, your home qualified for this particular process because we saw that there was the ability for us to perform on it, and do what was necessary. So, in some cases, what we've done is we've helped people out with like pods. Like we have a property in Indiana right now where there was 3 pods dropped off to the property, and then the sellers were able to load their stuff up into the pods, and then it gets shipped to a storage facility for the pods, and then once they get to their new location, then the pods just get dropped off at their new location so they can just move everything into the new home. So we were able to help facilitate that. I mean, we've helped with moving trucks from time to time, or even just single storage units. It's all on a case-by-case basis and just depends on what the situation is, right? So, we try to work with people and figure out the best solution that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, we can certainly work with you there. I mean, and forgive me, I totally get it. Like, this is the first time you've talked to me and, you've had a rough go at it with trying to sell the property and, bad experience in the past. And so we want to work with you. It sounds like really that the stress of the move and finding the new place is kind of getting to you. Is that really what it comes down to? And that's totally normal. It happens all the time. Like we see it all the time.
Well, I mean, I understand you guys are trying to figure out what exactly happening going on with my head. That is a big factor that goes into it. I mean, it is scary and there's a lot that is happening. I'm just trying to sit here and evaluate all of my options on if I proceed forward with you guys, then where exactly does that leave me with everything?
Yeah. When you originally spoke with Brad and signed the agreement, where were you intending on going at that point?
We hadn't quite looked at places or anything like that, but I have found 2 places that I like. And I've looked at several of them. Unfortunately, since I haven't had any money or any money to put down a down payment or anything along those lines, some of the houses that I've liked, they've already sold.
Yeah.
There's 2 that I've found here recently, and I'm kind of nervous that they're going to sell.
I gotcha. Okay. Where are those located?
One is right outside of Chelsea, and the other is in the middle of Nowata. But the one that I really want is in Chelsea, and it does not accept a contingency plan. That's what I was going to do, so it does not accept that.
Got it. Okay. You're looking to purchase or you're looking to rent?
Purchase.
Purchase. Okay. Got it. And that's Chelsea, Oklahoma. What was the other name of the town you said?
Nowata.
How do you spell that?
Nowata.
Oh, okay. Got it. So how far are those towns from where you're at currently? And forgive me, I'm just not super familiar with most of Oklahoma.
Where the phone number came from. I would say they are about an hour or so from where I live now.
Okay. All right. So it's not terribly far. Okay. Yeah. So, in that circumstance, I mean, we can work with you to try to help find some properties, because the other thing is we have an active network of investors nationwide, and I personally know some investors in Oklahoma. Most of the ones that I know are typically in Tulsa and OKC, but we have a pretty wide network, and might be able to find some properties that are not only on market but also off market properties that might kind of fit what you're looking for. So I'm
working with a realtor. I found the one that I want.
Okay.
It's perfect. It's 2 acres. I've been thinking about it for a minute. I've already went and looked at it. I don't have the money on it.
I got you. How much is the property?
It is listed for $125,000. But the other issue that we're coming into is I need a truck and a trailer to be able to move all of my stuff. I have a big, heavy metal frame that it's gonna have to be hauled by a big truck and a bigger trailer.
I gotcha. Okay. That 125 purchase price, is that the one that is not taking contingent offers?
What I'm understanding.
Got it. Okay. All right. How long has that one been listed? Do you know?
I want to say about 5 or 7 days now. When we went and looked at it, it was only listed for 3.
Okay. Got it. All right. Okay. Well, I mean, we can try to work with you to help with the situation. Unfortunately, when they're not taking contingent offers, that's something. I mean, you can try to negotiate that and try to have the agent negotiate that, and put a strong offer in. Do you have the address of the property?
Give me 1 minute. I can look at it.
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Okay, so it looks like they've been trying to sell this property for a while now, actually. So they originally listed.
Can you see who the owner is by any chance?
I'd have to go through let me see. There's a service I can go through, but it might take a minute here. Give me a second. Let me see if I can and let me just double check the address. It's like a tan and brown manufactured home. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they've had this thing listed since February 21st. And actually, so February 21st of 2023, they listed it for $115. It went pending April 12th. Then it fell out of pending April 18th. Then it went, they did a price change from $115 to $108 on May 9th. Then they removed the listing on May 22nd. Then they listed it again on August 4th at $115. Then it went pending on August 8th at $115. Then it came off of pending and is back listed as of September 13th. So they might be trying to posture a little bit that they're, that they're holding tight. My guess is if I'm looking at this, I'm seeing, okay, they had it listed lower, didn't sell. It's been on for 6 months now. 8 months actually, from the original time that it was listed. So they definitely probably listed it over value. My guess is you could probably get a better deal than the 125 they're asking at this point. And you could probably,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Going and looking at the property, I estimated it without even looking at any of the number value or anything like that. I just blatantly told the realtor $60,000. He went and did some digging, and that is the lowest of what was reasonable amount to offer for it.
Got it. Okay. Were you just going to pay cash for it, or were you going to finance it?
I was going to pay cash for it.
Okay.
I was going to walk in with a $60,000 cash offer.
Got it. Okay. So you could certainly do that. If they take the $60,000, then, and you're good to go there, then yeah, absolutely do that. Alternatively, if you get any resistance on that, you could try to make like a seller finance offer, and give them like some money up front and then some monthly payments, so that way it like sweetens the pot for them, but you don't have to come up with all the cash right at closing. And that maybe is more of an incentive for them to go that route. Yeah, I mean, my guess is they're probably going to want to negotiate a little bit because it looks like it's vacant, just based on the pictures. There's no furniture in there at all. So when you saw it, was it vacant or was there any furniture in there?
No, it was just like the pictures.
Yeah. Okay. So it's costing them money to keep it at this point. They're paying property taxes, which is probably not that much there, but.
And then going and looking at the property, I completely picked it apart and I listed a whole reasoning of why I wanted it at $60,000.
Yeah.
And I'm fully prepared for a counter offer, or just a simple no.
Yeah.
And if it comes back with a counter offer, simple no, just depending on what it does, is where I would go after that.
I mean, like worst case scenario, like what do you think you'd be willing to pay them for it?
Maybe 75. I know it's really cheap still, but knowing for how much the land goes for around there, what I'm digging myself into with that property, because I would buy it as is.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell them.
Yep.
and then I would have to go in and remove a lot of the stuff that's on that property.
I gotcha.
Which wouldn't be a big deal for me. It's just I don't want to pay that much money for a property and then have to turn around and dump even more money into it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I don't think your offer is off base, especially because, like, if I look, there's not many manufactured homes that sold in that area, but there is one literally like right nearby that sold in 2021 for like $68K. That one was built in 1984, so similar age.
Yes, sir. I know the man who owns it.
Yeah, and that one's a 2.5 acres. So, I mean, you'll probably, just based on the market today versus the market in 2021, you probably have to pay a little bit more for it. So maybe in that, because he listed it, or whoever it was listed it back for like 85,000, and then actually listed it for 90, then dropped to 85, and then ended up selling for 68. So, I mean, you can even show that. I mean, that's a $22,000 reduction. So that's like roughly a 20% reduction. So I would say, if they had it listed for 115 originally, if you do a 20% reduction on that, they'll probably,
they dropped it to 108.
Yep. So
if they're willing to drop down to 108, it's already way past the market point on 125.
Yeah.
With a 20% off, or 20, drop down 20 more thousand, would put it about an 80. So if I was to come in at a 75, it's guaranteed they'd probably walk with it.
Yeah, I think you're in probably a decent position on that one, and they've, it's been sitting forever. So I would definitely keep on pecking at that one for sure, because I think they'll be willing to move on it. I mean, other than that, in the last 12 months, nothing has sold in that whole area, from the lake all the way through to the 66.
Yeah, everything's pretty quiet and intense over there. That's why I like the area.
Yeah, you'll be right by the lake too, so that'd be nice.
I live by the lake right now, so.
Oh yeah, that's right.
My only problem with trying to move forward is, again, we haven't gotten any money or anything like that, and trying to get a hold of Brad for any type of confirmation, or trying to get any information or anything like that is like pulling teeth.
Yeah, I will tell you, he's been down for the count. Like, he's been only working intermittently, because originally he didn't think it was going to be this bad, but he has what we're all thinking is probably a COVID variant, because all of a sudden today he's just like dead. I know he has been kind of in and out, so I apologize about that. But this is my direct number. Now, I'm not always the most easy to access, because I'm in tons of meetings and calls and stuff like that. But if you shoot a text, or leave a message, I will definitely get back to you, when as soon as I have a moment. Usually same day for sure. And we are 3 hours behind you. So, by the end of your, after work hours, your time, we're still chugging along. So I still have like another hour, probably hour and a half here. Why don't we do this? Because it sounds like, and I get it. It sounds like really it's just a little bit of just hesitation, a little bit of, seller's remorse, and just the challenges and the obstacles kind of are making it a little more frustrating, and it's almost easier to just kind of throw in the towel and say I give up, you know what I mean? Which I get, I've been there before, but it sounds like you would like to move on and get to this new place if you can lock up this new deal. So why don't we push forward? We'll suss out whatever interest we can get in the property, and see what it's even like. And, we can kind of go from there and work things out. We're not going to just leave you out in the cold or anything like that. We're not just going to, hey, you got to get out. Like, it's done deal. See you later. We want to work with you, and we want it to be amicable and, get you onto your next place in a world where it's, good for you. You know what I mean? And I get it, it's like sometimes family members are like, I would like to buy the property, you know what I mean? So, like, I totally understand what you're going through, you know what I mean?
How exactly In your opinion, how would you suggest me moving forward for this other property?
You said you already have an agent that's representing you?
Yes.
Okay. How did you get that agent? Are they like a friend, or did you just Google agents in the area, or what?
No, he's a very close friend of ours.
Okay. All right. Got it. So what I would do is I would just have that agent just continue to reach out to the seller's agent, and just continue to express interest. Has the offer been submitted yet?
Not yet, because I had this whole ordeal with my family, so I wanted to try to get it figured out and talk to you guys and get it figured out. And I was going to put in an offer, and then all of this stuff happened up, so that I'm kind of at a standstill.
I gotcha.
The other thing that kind of is keeping me from going ahead and putting in an offer on the property is if they do accept, they're not taking contingency or anything like that. So I don't have any money to put down on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just so you know, there's a couple different types of contingencies. You may know this already, right? So one of them is like your property selling, like needing to sell your house first, basically. The other, which is more common, is like renovation and inspection contingencies. I would clarify with them, like, hey, I'm just waiting to get my house across the finish line, and you can tell them legitimately, like, hey, I'm under contract with, to sell my property. Like, we're in escrow, contract is in place, like, and if they need verification of that, you can have them call me. I'll say, absolutely, we're under contract with the property. So like, I'll go to bat for you there. But what it sounds like is they probably want you to waive inspection contingencies because they want you to buy it as is, which it sounds like you're already settled on doing anyway.
I just think that would be the easiest way to get a hold of the property, is if I just walk in and be like, hey, here's cash offer of this, and I'm going to take care of it how it is.
Yep.
You don't have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So what I would do is I would, submit the offer like, hey, all cash offer, just waiting for my property to close, escrow, and just have your agent submit an offer like that and then see what they say. And just like follow up with them on it. You know what I mean? Don't like wait for them to get back to you, like have him submit the offer, and then within, if he submits the offer on, today or probably not today, but like tomorrow or Friday, and then maybe like literally first thing Monday morning, it's like, hey, just following up on the offer, and
Okay.
and then once he gets in I'm guessing he's probably been an agent for a while now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so I've been, in this business for a long time and, have a lot of experience in like just different types of negotiations and stuff like that. So, I'm sure he'll be fine doing it. You just got to keep poking at like the holes in the property, and just emphasize all the problems, all the issues, all the things that you're anticipating needing to renovate, when it was built, show the comps that have sold, like the one comp that sold in 2021 for 68, just to, to further justify your valuation. At the end of the day, like, cause that's the thing. It's like most people's problem is they come up with a number and the number's based off of nothing.
Okay.
But yeah, most times what happens is people tend to make an offer and they, while they might have had justification why their offer was what it was, they don't tell them that justification. So I would just like document like all of the things that you're foreseeing having to put into it and what you see as like, oh, this is wrong, this is going to cost me money, this is going to cost me money. You just want to value stack all of the issues that you are foreseeably going to have to invest into fixing or bringing up to date. And
right,
all of that's going to have a value attached to it, right? So it's like, hey, you want $125,000. Formerly, you wanted $115,000, and at one point you were fine with $108,000. And the reality is, even at $108,000, after paying commissions and closing costs, the seller is probably going to walk away with like $99,000. Like that's what they're going to net. So, maybe, and I'm not trying to like dig into agents' commissions or anything like that, but like that's something you could also bring up to your friend who's the agent and say, hey, are you willing to work on your commission a little bit? To help me out if this guy's not willing to negotiate down, and see what they say. And, maybe if each agent comes off of the commission a little bit, because the selling agent, it's been listed for so long that they're probably at risk of it falling completely out, which means they make no money. So at this point, the selling agent would probably be willing to reduce their commission to get it across the finish line.
Yes, I understand.
I think you could probably, come in, at that low number, just rattle off all of the things that you foresee having to put into the property. And then further justify it with the fact that it's been sitting for a long time, they're paying property taxes and nobody's living in it. So it's only gonna get worse. Interest rates are going up, there's not a lot of activity here, there's not a lot of buyers. And then
well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries. And then keep me in the loop as to how that's going. Like, so moving forward, what I want you to do is just, I'll be your point of contact. And then my partner, Sharissa, who also helps with these properties that we work on. So we'll be your point of contact. You have my direct number. What we'll do is, we can continue the process. We're already pulling the title report. So they're going to pull and, figure out exactly any title issues or discrepancies there. So that'll help clear up any of, that stuff. And then,
okay,
we'll see what kind of interest we get. I mean, who knows? Like, generally speaking, we get, pretty decent interest based on where we come in at. But, it's a more rural market. So who knows? So we can just kind of play it by ear and see how it goes. And then, just try to work with you and stay in contact,
Okay. Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Does that help you feel a bit more confident about the process and everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time, to talk to me. And, again, I apologize if, there was ever any, miscommunication or, you felt like you were misled or anything like that. That's not our intention. Our goal is to, help through the process. So just keep me in the loop as to what goes on with this property that you're looking to buy. And then, we can help any way we can and, and try to help make it a more seamless process. Sometimes what we can even do is we can work with that closing agent to make sure that like the closings occur on the same day. So that way it's a streamlined process for both transactions to close. And it generally will give the seller of the property you're looking to buy a lot more confidence in the transaction as well.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So, so I would be able to tell them that within this time frame is whenever the house is closed, when they would also receive them.
Did you have any other questions for me at this point?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
And thank you for talking to me and calming me down and explaining a lot more. That definitely helped.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I apologize if at any point, I came across frustrated or anything like that. It was not my intention. As you can imagine, we have a lot of these types of conversations all the time. And, sometimes they're stressful, sometimes they're smooth. And, I wish everybody was at least as understanding and, open to communicate as you have been, because it definitely makes it a lot easier. So I appreciate you.
Well, I want to apologize for coming off, if I have in any cosplay or anything like that. I do have a temper, and I want to commend you for being able to withhold that temper. Not a lot of men can, so congratulations.
No, I appreciate that. Well, I just had a baby girl like 9 months ago, so that definitely softened me up quite a bit.
Congratulations and good luck. Be a handful.
Yeah, let's reconvene on this. Give it over the weekend, and then I'll follow up with you next week and just kind of give you an update as to like where we're at, what next steps are. Okay. And then if you get any word on this other property, and updates on that, then, for sure, let me know. Typically, just so you're aware, you might know this already, but typically when you're going to make an offer on a property, really all you have to come up with is the earnest money deposit on them, which in a normal transaction, you're probably looking at somewhere between 1% and 3%. So really, even if you got it at the 125, you're probably looking at like 2,500 earnest money deposit, and that basically secures the transaction, gets you into contract. The down payment that, whatever you would need wouldn't, and especially in a cash transaction, wouldn't be necessary until the closing date. So really the only thing that you would have at risk would be that earnest money deposit. And usually, like if they want you to waive inspection contingencies, then basically that would be the only thing that you would have at risk of losing if you were to back out of that transaction. It's not like you'd have to put like 20% down, as you make the offer, and if anything goes wrong, like you lose that $20,000. Like it's definitely a lot less than that, and that can be negotiable. And I would say in a market like yours, you could probably get away with about $1,000 earnest money deposit on a property like that. All right.
That makes me feel a lot better also. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And again, let me know if you need any help with that, the conversation with that agent, the seller, like whatever. Happy to get involved. We do this all the time. And, sometimes just having another person involved, just throws out a couple different ideas, can, really help get things over the finish line. So happy to help.
Right. Well, I definitely appreciate it and your time. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. And if I don't hear from you before, Monday or Tuesday, Monday, I'm like slammed with meetings. So it'll probably be later in the afternoon. Well, my afternoon. So like after 5 p.m. your time, because you're Central Time, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it'll probably be sometime between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. your time.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. I appreciate you. Have a great rest of your week. And, feel free to text me or call me if you have any questions along the way.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right, guys. So hopefully you guys got value out of that really long call. Now, I have no problem self-critiquing. There's definitely a couple times where I probably went a little harsh in the beginning when I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have been a bit softer. But eventually we, reeled it back in, got back on the right side of the table, and were able to, kind of push forward with the conversation. And as you can see, like she's like, oh, it was listed for 7 days. And then, that was like 3 days ago. So really what she's telling me there is she was actively looking for a new property 2 or 3 days ago. So she's actively looking to sell. As much as this whole scenario is, there could be these things going on. More than likely, my guess is this: the property that she owns, somebody in the family would like to purchase it. And so they're like, you can't sell it. You got to sell it to somebody in the family. We want to buy it, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? They want to keep it in the family. Got in her ear and said, that's what you got to do. And so now she's like, I'm not really sure what I can do. And she's thinking, okay, well, she'll just sell it to them. It's like same situation. Like, what does it matter to her? Who's the buyer, right? And then she'll move on to this other place, right? Like that's really what's going on here. So, and we have all the title stuff, we'll clarify all those details and everything in the preliminary title report and all that jazz. But I fully anticipate us getting this thing across the finish line and moved per our contract. And you notice the moment that we went into the memorandum of purchase agreement and protecting our interest in the property, all of a sudden we were able to shift the tune and, figure out, and she's like, oh, well, I'm not sure where I'm going to go. Okay, well, where were you going to go when you entered into the contract? Well, we were thinking of this or that and blah, 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 blah. Now you start going down the path of positivity, right? Like you have to divert from the problem, right? Like try to address the problem, but if you can't address the problem, like try to figure out like what was the solution previously, like, and go down that path and start future casting, right? Like now she's thinking about like this new property that she likes and she wants to move into. And so now it's all hopes, dreams, positivity. And, you know, she might have seen like a little bit of a dead end there for whatever reason, you know, because there were challenges. And now we're just exposing that, hey, like those challenges might not be challenges. Hey, this property's been listed since February. Like they're not going to be that hard line on this property. You're probably going to be able to negotiate like all these different things. And now she's seeing like the hope that like, hey, something's going to work out. And the reality is we're not going to be like, hey, we're under contract with a buyer. Like you got to be out by this date. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, and put her out on the street. Like that's not going to happen. So hopefully you guys got value out of that. And stay tuned if you want to see more conversations like this, because this comes up from time to time and you want to see more of these types of calls. Click the link right here, and that's going to take you to the next video in this series. Other than that, again, Chris closes your deal with Real Estate Investing Made Easy. Peace.